San Diego Global Knowledge University.
Introduction. Welcome to this session. We're going to talk all about risk management and business continuity. These are super important for keeping a company strong and running smoothly. In this class, we'll see how companies deal with a world that's getting more and more complicated. Things are uncertain, everything is connected, and there are lots of dangers from both inside and outside the company. We'll start by understanding that managing risk isn't just a one-time thing or something you do only when a problem pops up. It's a planned process that helps you guess, check, and control things that could stop your company from reaching its goals. We'll look at how finding, looking at, and dealing with risks connects with business continuity. That's basically how a company can bounce back and keep going after something bad happens. We'll also talk about why it's so important to mix these ideas into your company's main plan. We'll highlight key things like deciding which jobs are most important, how much you rely on your suppliers, what technology means, and why you need clear plans for what to do, how to talk about it, and how to get back on track. This way, you'll see that a company's ability to be strong isn't just luck. It comes from smart choices based on careful thinking and teamwork between different parts of the company. Let's get started. Risk management and business continuity are two things that work together. Even though they have different ways of looking at things, they both have one main goal: to make sure companies can keep working even when there are dangers from inside or outside. Both start with the same idea: finding, checking, and handling risks. Risks are things that could happen and hurt a company's stuff, its work, or its results. Risk management is all about having a company mindset that looks ahead. It means finding possible problems before they happen and putting things in place to handle them. This isn't just about buying insurance. It's about doing things before and after bad stuff happens, so insurance becomes just one part of the plan, not the whole plan itself. So, risk management tries to set up ways, both money-wise and work-wise, to move, lessen, or take on risks in a smart way. On the other hand, business continuity is about how well a company can react, recover, and keep working when there are emergencies, crises, or disasters. This includes things like the first response, telling people what's happening, and getting things back to normal. It makes sure that important jobs can start up again as fast as possible. Emergency response is just the first step. The real value comes from having a full plan that helps the business keep going for a long time. Putting these two things together is super important for making strong company plans. This should be a deep and ongoing part of how the company works every day. If not, surviving threats would just be luck, and that's not good enough in today's tough and complicated world. The risk management process has three main steps. The first is finding risks. This means spotting possible dangers by doing things like checking things out, looking at past problems, using checklists, analyzing how things work, and reviewing papers. This step needs people who really know how the company runs, and sometimes help from outside experts. The second step is analyzing the risk. Here, we look at two main things: how often something might happen and how bad it could be. How often refers to the chance of it happening, while how bad measures the possible damage. This helps us sort risks and decide which ones to deal with first. For example, risks that don't happen often but are very bad are usually handled with insurance, while those that happen a lot but aren't too bad are managed by changing how we do things. The third step is using risk management techniques. These fall into two big groups: risk control and risk financing. Risk control tries to make bad things happen less often or be less damaging. It uses strategies like preventing problems, reducing them, separating things, making copies, or making deals with others. Risk financing, on the other hand, is about deciding who will pay for the losses when they happen. When it comes to controlling risks, prevention is super important. Many studies show that most accidents happen because of human mistakes. But we can fix this by teaching people, checking equipment regularly, doing safety checks, and having good rules for how things work. It's almost impossible to avoid all risks, because that would mean stopping important things the company does. The risks companies face can be put into 5 groups. how they do their work, legal stuff, money problems, how people see them, and tech issues. Risks from how they do their work come from their everyday tasks. Legal risks are about following rules. Money risks mean losing cash. Reputation risks hurt how the public sees the company. And tech risks are about computers and digital things. We need to look at all these groups together because one problem can cause trouble in many areas at once. So, managing risks and keeping the business going aren't just separate jobs. They are key parts of making the company better, keeping its stuff safe, and making sure it lasts. To do this well, different departments need to work together, look at the big picture, and always try to get better. This helps companies not just deal with problems, but also get stronger in a world that's always changing. Managing risk means more than just finding and looking at problems. It also means putting real plans in place to lessen their effect and figuring out how to pay for losses when they happen. Once we find and check the risks, the next step is to use methods that help us handle them well. We need to think about how they affect our work and if they make financial sense. When we talk about controlling risk, reducing it means making losses less severe. This involves quick, protective actions that stop a lot of damage. Think about protecting your stuff from a flood or using automatic fire systems. For example, moving goods to safe spots during a flood or having fire alarms can really cut down the harm from a bad event. Another plan is called separation. This means spreading out your work or things so that one bad event doesn't stop everything. This goes hand in hand with duplication, where you make important copies, like backup data or having other suppliers. This makes sure your work can keep going even if something breaks. Also, a contract transfer lets you give responsibilities to others through special rules, which lowers the direct risk for your company. Even with all these controls, you can't get rid of all losses. That's where risk funding comes in. This part answers two big questions. How much risk can your company handle, and how much should you pass on to others, like insurance companies? Companies often pay for small, common losses themselves, treating them like regular costs. But for bigger problems, they turn to insurance. So, insurance becomes a smart tool for funding risk. There are different kinds, like property insurance, which covers damage to physical things, business interruption insurance, which pays for lost money, and liability insurance, which covers harm to other people. When choosing these, don't just look at the price. Also think about what's covered, how fast the company responds, and how strong they are financially. Sometimes companies choose more complex ways, like insuring themselves or creating their own insurance companies. This lets them handle certain risks on their own. But these choices need a lot of money and special skills that not all companies have. Picking the right plans isn't a one-time thing. It's about mixing different ways to control things and pay for them. You have to check how well they work and how much they cost. For example, a trucking company might use safety programs, business insurance, and even save money themselves for smaller risks to handle all their risks. Once you put these plans into action, it's super important to watch how they're doing. This means comparing what actually happens to the risk levels you said were okay before. And if things aren't matching up, you need to make changes. Managing risk is always moving and never stops. You have to check it often to make sure your plans are still working well as things change around you. In all of this, the risk manager plays a very important role. They don't just need to know about insurance and how to stop losses. They also need to really understand how the business works, get different teams to work together, and give advice when big decisions are being made. Their job is to make sure risk management is a part of the company's main plan. This way, the company doesn't just react to bad things, but also sees them coming and gets ready for them in a smart way. Managing risk and keeping things going in complicated places like schools or places without a lot of money means you can't just hope for the best. You need a clear plan, work together, and think ahead. The main thing isn't just to deal with bad things when they happen, but to see them coming by having a good setup inside and knowing what parts of the business are most important. The first step is to put together a team with people from different parts of the organization. This team needs to work together to figure out what the most important daily tasks are that keep things running. They also need to decide how long they can afford for things to be down before they get back to normal. Doing this helps them decide where to put their resources and focus their efforts on what really keeps the organization going. In this situation, problems like students dropping out, safety concerns, corruption, or old technology should be seen as risks to the organization. These aren't just one-off events. They're things that can affect how well and how long the organization can keep going. Dealing with them means including them in the risk analysis, figuring out how much they could hurt things, and making special plans to prevent them and recover from them. A really important part of this is managing knowledge and protecting information. Losing important knowledge or trade secrets is a risk that's hard to completely control because it depends on what people do. But you can put things in place like access controls, official ways to handle sensitive information, and training programs that clearly explain how to use the organization's knowledge properly. In places with limited resources, like governments or organizations in developing countries, managing risk needs an even smarter approach. Not having enough resources means you have to pick and choose what's most important, and sometimes you have to accept certain risks. But when different groups, like the government, businesses, and regular people, work together, they can come up with clever solutions and ways to recover that don't just rely on spending a lot of money. Planning together and thinking about different possible situations are super important for dealing with these limitations. In places with high physical risks, like earthquake or volcano areas, managing risk needs to focus on keeping people safe and checking how strong buildings are. If we can't move, we need to find ways to lessen the damage, make buildings stronger, and be ready to act after something happens. When we look at how a company is set up, risk management changes depending on how big, how it's built, and how complicated it is. There's no one perfect way to set up a team or department for this. The main thing is to make sure there's a good way to listen, find problems, and quickly help different parts of the company when they need it. Planning for how a business keeps going is all about knowing that how a company works isn't always the same or steady. Things like seasons, relying on suppliers, technology, and how different jobs connect can all change things. So, we need to look closely to find the big weaknesses that could stop things from working and hurt our ability to help customers. One of the key things is how we manage our supply chain. Many companies, trying to save money, end up relying on just one supplier or very special materials. While this might seem smart for daily operations, it actually makes it much riskier if something goes wrong. If that one supplier fails, the problems can start right away and be really bad, especially if it takes a long time to find a new one or to get new materials approved. Also, relying too much on technology is a big problem. If our computer systems, data processing equipment, or communication networks go down, everything can stop. This can mess up important things like helping customers, sending out bills, or getting products where they need to go. In places where everything is run by computers, even a short stop can cause big problems with time, money, and how people see the company. Another important thing is how different parts of a company rely on each other. In many industries, like electronics or medicine, all the steps are so connected that if one part breaks down, the whole production line can stop. This gets even worse if all the work happens in one place, or if the company is already making as much as it possibly can, with no room to make up for losses by making more or hiring other companies to help. So, because of all this, figuring out the risks, which we call business impact analysis, becomes super important. This process helps us find the most important things a company does, decide how quickly they need to be back up and running, and figure out the order in which things need to be fixed. The main goal is to make sure the company can still keep its promises and keep customers happy, even when bad things happen. Coming up with recovery plans really depends on how you rank things. If a task can't be brought back online in time, you need to find other ways, like working with others, hiring outside help, or moving resources around. For groups with not a lot of money or people, working with other groups through shared help programs becomes a good way to get stronger at handling problems. A super important part of planning is getting the top bosses to agree. Without them actively involved, efforts to keep the business going usually fail. The plan needs to match the company's main goals and show what's truly important to them. This can only happen when leaders guide the process from the top down, helping to find information and make decisions. Also, you need to think about the worst things that could happen. This way of thinking helps you make strong plans that can handle really bad events, instead of having many weak plans for small things. By focusing on getting tasks back to normal and not just fixing buildings, you get more freedom to deal with different kinds of unexpected problems. Keeping the business running has three main parts that work together. The first is dealing with emergencies, which is about getting the situation under control and keeping people and things safe. The second is talking during a crisis, which means managing information inside and outside the company to keep trust and a good name. The third is getting the business back on track, which sets up the steps and order needed to restart operations within the planned times. All in all, these things show that business continuity isn't just a fixed plan. It's a smart process that helps companies deal with a world that's getting more and more complicated. Things like working efficiently, being connected globally, and relying on technology all make businesses more open to risks. Conclusion: risk management and business continuity are like two sides of the same coin. They're always changing, and they work together to help companies deal with problems in a structured way, especially when things are uncertain. By finding out what could go wrong, seeing how bad it could be, and then putting plans in place to control and pay for it, companies can become less likely to be hurt and better at bouncing back. Business continuity takes this idea further by setting up clear ways to get things working again. It makes sure that important tasks can start back up when they need to. Things like planning for big problems, working with other groups, protecting important stuff, and having leaders who are committed are all super important for a good response. Together, these ways of thinking help companies stop just reacting to problems and instead get ahead of them. This means being ready, preparing, and being able to change become big advantages. So companies don't just lessen the bad effects of problems, they also become stronger and more able to last a long time.
San Diego Global Knowledge University, education beyond boundaries.